Welcome to EngloStories. Today, we're going to explore one of the world's most beloved fairy tales, The Ugly Duckling. This heartwarming story was written by Hans Christian Andersen, a famous Danish author, and was first published in 1843. For nearly 2 centuries, it has captured the hearts of readers around the globe. The Ugly Duckling tells the story of a young bird who looks different from his brothers and sisters. Because of his unusual appearance, he faces rejection and loneliness. But don't worry, this isn't just a sad tale. Our little friend embarks on a challenging journey of self-discovery that will take him through changing seasons and many encounters with other animals. What happens to this misunderstood creature? Does he ever find a place where he belongs? Let's discover together how this timeless story unfolds and what surprising transformation awaits our hero. Now, let's begin the story. It was a beautiful summer day in the countryside. The sun shone brightly on the green fields, and wildflowers dotted the landscape with splashes of color. In this peaceful setting, a mother duck sat patiently on her nest, waiting for her eggs to hatch. She had been sitting for what felt like forever, and she was growing tired. How much longer? She sighed to herself, but she knew that good things take time. Finally, one by one, the eggs began to crack. Peep, peep, came the sounds as tiny yellow ducklings emerged from their shells. The mother duck watched with pride as each new baby broke free and shook off bits of eggshell. But there was one egg left, the largest one, and it showed no signs of hatching. This egg was different from the others. It was bigger and had a slightly grayish color. I'll give it a little more time, the mother duck decided, and continued to sit on the last egg while her other ducklings began exploring their surroundings. 3 more days passed before the large egg finally cracked open. Out stepped a duckling who looked nothing like his brothers and sisters. He was bigger, with grayish-brown feathers instead of soft yellow down. His feet and bill were also larger, and he moved awkwardly compared to the other ducklings. How strange this one looks, the mother duck thought. Could there have been a mix-up with my eggs? But he must be mine because he came from my nest. Life was difficult for the unusual duckling from the very beginning. When the mother duck took her children to the farmyard to introduce them to the other animals, everyone stared at the gray duckling. What an ugly duckling! An older duck quacked loudly. He's too big and the wrong color. Are you sure he's really yours? He may not be handsome, the mother duck defended her child, but he swims very well. In fact, I think he's the strongest swimmer of all my ducklings. But her words did little to protect the poor duckling. His own brothers and sisters began to tease him. Ugly, ugly, they would quack at him. They pushed him away during feeding time and refused to play with him. The other farm animals were no kinder. The chickens pecked at him when he came near their food. The larger ducks bumped into him on purpose. Even the farmers' children threw small stones at him because he looked so different. Day by day, the ugly duckling grew more sad and lonely. He began to believe what everyone said about him, that he was too ugly to belong anywhere. Perhaps they're right, he thought one gray morning as he sat alone by the edge of the pond. Maybe I shouldn't be here at all. With a heavy heart, the duckling made a difficult decision. He would leave the farmyard and try to find somewhere else to live, somewhere he might be accepted for who he was. That night, when everyone was asleep, the ugly duckling slipped away through a hole in the farm fence. He walked and walked until he came to a large marsh where wild ducks lived. Maybe I'll fit in better with wild ducks, he hoped. But when morning came, the wild ducks noticed him immediately. "You are so ugly," they quacked. "You can stay here, but don't expect to make friends or find a mate looking like that." The ugly duckling continued his journey, moving from place to place. Wherever he went, the story was the same. Other birds and animals would stare, laugh, or chase him away. Autumn arrived, bringing cold winds and falling leaves. The trees lost their colorful foliage, and the days grew shorter. The ugly duckling still hadn't found a place where he belonged. One evening, he watched as a flock of large, beautiful white birds flew overhead. Their long necks stretched forward, their powerful wings carrying them south. What magnificent creatures! The duckling sighed as he gazed at them. Something inside him stirred, a strange longing to follow them, though he knew his awkward wings could never carry him so far. Winter arrived, with bitter cold and heavy snow. For the ugly duckling, this was the most difficult time of all. The ponds and lakes froze over, making it harder to find food and shelter. One particularly frigid evening, the exhausted duckling collapsed near a frozen pond. The cold was so intense that the water around the edges began to freeze around his feet and feathers. He couldn't move and thought this might be the end of his journey. "I'm going to die here, alone and unloved," he thought sadly as his eyes began to close. But fate had other plans. A farmer walking home noticed the struggling bird. With gentle hands, he freed the duckling from the ice and tucked him inside his warm coat. "My, you're an unusual bird," the farmer said kindly. "Let's get you warmed up at my house." At the farmer's cottage, the duckling gradually regained his strength. The farmer's children were curious about their new guest, but their excitement frightened the duckling. They were loud and grabbed at him roughly, trying to play. The cottage cat hissed whenever the duckling came near, and the hen in the kitchen corner pecked at him when he approached her food dish. "You're too ugly to be useful," the hen clucked. "Can you lay eggs? No? Then why are you here?" The cat was even more direct. "You can't purr or catch mice. You're worthless." After several uncomfortable days, the duckling noticed that the cottage door had been left ajar. Despite the winter cold outside, he decided that freedom with hardship was better than shelter with constant rejection. He slipped out into the snow and found a sheltered spot among some reeds by a partially frozen lake. There, he huddled against the bitter winds, surviving on whatever meager food he could find. These were his darkest days, filled with hunger, cold, and a deep loneliness that seemed to have no end. The duckling somehow survived the harsh winter, though he grew thinner and weaker. He remained hidden in his sheltered spot, venturing out only when necessary to find food. Finally, after what seemed like forever, the days began to grow longer and warmer. The ice on the lake melted, revealing clear blue water. Green shoots pushed up through the soil, and birds returned from their winter travels, filling the air with song. The ugly duckling, now almost grown, felt a new energy with the changing season. His body had changed during the winter. He was bigger and stronger, though he didn't realize how much he had transformed. One glorious morning, he saw 3 beautiful white birds land gracefully on the lake. They were the same kind of birds he had seen flying south before winter, swans with elegant long necks and powerful wings. The duckling watched them from a distance, admiring their beauty and grace. Something drew him toward them. even though he expected rejection as always. "They are so beautiful," he thought. "They will surely chase me away, but I must see them up close just once." With a nervous heart, he swam toward the swans, bracing himself for their harsh words or attacks. To his surprise, they turned toward him with friendly expressions. When he reached them, he bowed his head in shame and happened to see his reflection in the clear water. What he saw made him freeze in astonishment. The ugly duckling could hardly believe his eyes. Looking back at him from the water's surface was not the awkward grayish bird he had always been, but a beautiful white swan. His long, dark suffering had transformed him into the most magnificent of birds. "I never dreamed this could be possible," he thought, his heart overflowing with joy. The other swans swam around him, gently touching his feathers with their bills in a gesture of welcome. For the first time in his life, he had found where he truly belonged. Children visiting the lake threw breadcrumbs and exclaimed, "Look at the new swan. He might be the most beautiful one of all." The once ugly duckling, now a majestic swan, felt happiness beyond words. All the hardship and loneliness he had endured made this moment of belonging even sweeter. He had finally found his place in the world. The story of the ugly duckling teaches us several important lessons. First, it reminds us that appearances can be deceiving and often change over time. What seems awkward or different today might become beautiful tomorrow. Second, it shows us that our true identity cannot be determined by what others think or say about us. The duckling was always a swan, even when everyone called him ugly. Third, this tale encourages patience during difficult times. The duckling's winter of suffering eventually gave way to a spring of joy and belonging. Finally, the story reminds us that everyone has a place where they truly belong. Sometimes, finding that place requires a journey, but it's worth the search to discover where and with whom we fit perfectly. Thank you for joining us for today's EngloStories. If you enjoyed The Ugly Duckling, please like this video and share it with friends who are also learning English. What was your favorite part of the story? Let us know in the comments below. Follow EngloStories as we upload a story daily, so that you can look forward to our next video. Which story would you like to hear next?